Hey guys, this is Trav Max Fun and welcome back to my channel, and today I am finally going to be covering all the news and announcements that dropped during Destination D23. So Destination D23 was last weekend, September 8th through 10th, so it is done, it is over, and they announced and talked about a bunch of things at the parks panel and also throughout the event too. But mostly the parks panel, that was like probably the biggest panel at the event. And that's pretty much what I'm mostly going to be talking about in this video, is the parks panel and everything that was talked about, announced, and yeah, but I'm also going to be talking about a couple other things that were announced that were announced at the event but weren't announced at the parks panel. Lots of things they talked about, discussed. Definitely a few surprises in here too that I don't think any of us were expecting. So I'm just going to jump right in, covering all the news and announcements that were made. So without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so we're going to begin in Disneyland here, but before I do start covering all the news and announcements, I just want to say that, like I said, I am going to be starting in Disneyland, talking about the stuff that was talked about for Disneyland, but then after Disneyland, I'm then going to talk about Disney Cruise Line, and then Tokyo, Paris, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. And I'm going to say Walt Disney World for last because Walt Disney World has a lot of stuff to talk about, while Disneyland, Cruise Line, Tokyo, Paris, etc. There's really not much to talk about for those parks and stuff. Unlike Walt Disney World, where Walt Disney World, there's a bunch of stuff to talk about. So just want to throw that out there. But let's begin. And like I said, going to begin in Disneyland first. And the first thing they announced was that Ahsoka is going to be coming to Star Tours in Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and Disneyland Paris. And as we all know, Star Tours is receiving new adventures in 2024 at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, and Disneyland Paris. This wasn't anything they announced at Destination D23. They announced this a while back, like back in May or April, during Star Wars Celebration, I believe. So Ahsoka is going to be coming to Star Tours in the spring of 2024 at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, and Disneyland Paris. All right, the next thing they announced was a new character, Asha, who is the lead character in Disney's upcoming film Wish. She'll be coming to the parks. She'll be coming to the parks. She's going to be coming to Disneyland, EPCOT in Walt Disney World, and Disneyland Paris. So, new character, Asha, coming to Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and Disneyland Paris. All right, next up is Tiana's Bayou Adventure. They talked about the attraction and gave us a first look at the animatronics that are, at least one of the animatronics that is in a work in progress, showing us the progress of the animatronic, and it was the animatronic for Lewis. Sorry if I mispronounced that name, but I believe it's Lewis. They showed us the progress happening for Lewis's animatronic, and it's looking great, looking really cool, so talked about Tiana's Bayou Adventure and showed us a first look at one of the animatronics, or at least a first look at the progress of the animatronics, and yeah. All right, and the last thing to talk about for Disneyland, actually, is the Avengers e-ticket Multiverse attraction that was announced at D23 Expo last year. So they did give us an update on this attraction, but they were mostly talking about the ride vehicle for the attraction, and they gave us details about the ride vehicle, and they showed first piece, this piece of concept art for the ride vehicle as well. This ride vehicle is supposed to travel to different universes through the multiverse. So it's like a multiverse traveling ride vehicle, basically. But it's supposed to travel through the multiverse and travel to different universes. So, yeah, but they gave us an update on the attraction. But from the looks of it, looks pretty cool. So, yeah. All right, so that is everything they talked about for Disneyland. Surprisingly, not that much was talked about for Disneyland. It was just mostly updates on stuff we know are coming. But now I'm going to move on over to Disney Cruise Line and talk about what they talked about for Disney Cruise Line at Destination D23. The first thing here, the Disney Treasure, the sixth ship in the fleet. Of course, last week they released a bunch of information and details surrounding the ship and what's going to be on the ship. But here at Destination D23, they talked about the treasure for a little bit. But then we have the new private island for Disney Cruise Line. They talked about it, Lighthouse Point. They talked about it, Lighthouse Point, the new private island for Disney Cruise Line, but it's actually not going to be called Lighthouse Point because they did reveal the name for the island, and it's going to be called Lookout Key at Lighthouse Point, as you can see here. So that's going to be the name for the island, and And then they talked about the seventh ship in the fleet, and they revealed the name for it. I didn't think they were going to reveal the name for the seventh ship, but they did, and it's going to be called the Disney Adventure. And this ship is going to be this is going to be the ship that's going to be sailing from Singapore, and going to sail around the Southeast Asian market. So it's going to be sailing from Singapore. But it's going to be called the Disney Adventure. And another thing they announced here was that there's 3 new ships in development. I'm not sure what they mean by that. I don't know if there's like 3 more ships on the way, or if they mean like the Disney Treasure, the Disney Adventure, and another ship that we don't know about. I'm not quite sure what they mean by that, but all they said was that 3 new ships are in development. But the Disney Adventure is what the 7th ship is going to be called. And, Alright, so that was everything for Disney Cruise Line. Now going to move on over to Tokyo Disney Resort, where they talked about Fantasy Springs. They showed off a video, and they were talking about Fantasy Springs, showcasing the area and talking about the area and everything coming to the new port at Tokyo Disney Sea. Of course, as we all know, this new port is going to include Frozen, Tangled, Peter Pan, and a new hotel. They talked about the rides and just pretty much everything we've known about for a while now. So really not that much to talk about for Fantasy Springs. They showed off a video just discussing everything coming to the new port and showcasing off the new port. And it looks amazing, though. It really does look amazing. Alright, moving on over to Disneyland Paris. They also showed off a video for the Walt Disney Studios Frozen Lake expansion, where they just were giving us updates and showcasing what's happening in that area at the moment, and just talking more about it, talking more about the Frozen Land. They also talked about the Tangled attraction. Just basically a progress update on the expansion. So they also showed off, I believe, a first look at the Kristoff animatronic for the Frozen Land. So, yeah. Then they also showed off a video for the Disneyland hotel transformation, and just also gave us an update for this. Showed us everything that's happening there right now, for this transformation, and just talked more about the transformation. And actually, just a couple days ago, they released more details about the transformation, as well as concept art, and they announced that the Disneyland hotel transformation will open, or I guess reopen, in January of 2024, I believe the 25th, but I know it's in January of 2024, so really not too far away. So yeah. So that's everything for Disneyland Paris. Moving on over to Hong Kong Disneyland. They also showed off a video for World of Frozen. They talked about World of Frozen, and just showcased the land, talked about the land, and talked about everything that's going to be coming to the land. Of course, as we all know, World of Frozen is opening on November 20th at Hong Kong Disneyland, and that's pretty much it. So, so they just talked about the land and showcased it, and once again, World of Frozen, it looks amazing too, looks fantastic, and yeah, so World of Frozen opening November 20th at Hong Kong Disneyland. And then moving on over to Shanghai Disney Resort, they also showcased a video for the Zootopia land, which we got more information about last week before Destination D23, but they were just talking about everything we knew before Destination D23, showcased the land, talked about the attraction, which I believe is called Zootopia. I believe it's called Zootopia Hot Pursuit. That's the name of the attraction. So just like World of Frozen, Fantasy Springs, they just showcased the land, talked about it, and but this also looks great too. And it is said to be opening later this year. All right, so that was everything they talked about for Disneyland, Disney Cruise Line, Tokyo Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, Hong Kong Disneyland, and Shanghai Disneyland. Like I said, there wasn't much they talked about. It was just a couple new announcements and new details, and just videos showcasing off lands, and just talking about stuff coming to the lands that we've already known about for a while now. So yeah, not that much announced for Disneyland Cruise Line, Tokyo, etc. But now I'm finally going to be talking about Walt Disney World, and there is a lot to talk about for Walt Disney World. So let's begin. So first up is the Hatbox Ghost. We know the Hatbox Ghost is coming to the Haunted Mansion in Magic Kingdom, and they announced that he'll be coming to the Haunted Mansion in late November, and I'm actually going to be going to Walt Disney World in late November, so I'm hoping that he'll be there before my Magic Kingdom day, or even on my Magic Kingdom day. That would be awesome if he did debut on the day I go to Magic Kingdom. But he's set to debut in Haunted Mansion in late November. Next up is the Country Bear Jamboree, and they announced that the Country Bear Jamboree is getting a whole new act. It's going to be called the Country Bear Musical Jamboree, and basically, from what we saw, they're going to be singing Disney songs. In the video they showcased, we saw they were singing the Bare Necessities from the Jungle Book. So, so the Country Bear Jamboree getting a whole new act. It's going to be called the Country Bear Musical Jamboree, and it's going to premiere in 2024. The next thing they announced for Magic Kingdom is that a new tavern is coming to Adventureland, based around Pirates of the Caribbean. And that's pretty much all we heard. They just announced that a new tavern was coming. It was going to be based off Pirates of the Caribbean, or based around Pirates of the Caribbean. and that's pretty much it. They didn't say whether or not this is going to be like a whole new location in Adventureland, or if this is going to be replacing Tortuga Tavern, or even Pecco's Bills. But all we heard was that a new tavern was coming to Adventureland. So yeah, but we don't know. Like I said, we don't know if this is going to be replacing Tortuga Tavern, if this is going to be a whole new location, or if this is going to be replacing Pecco's Bills. But I would think that it wouldn't be Pecco's Bills, because they did not announce Tiana's Palace is going to be replacing Pecco's Bills. They did not announce that at Destination D23, but they announced this. So yeah, but we don't know where this is going to be located at in Adventureland. So yeah, it could be replacing Tortuga Tavern. We don't know. But yeah, so a new tavern is coming to Adventureland based around Pirates of the Caribbean. All right, moving on over to EPCOT. I'm going to be coming back to Magic Kingdom here later on. But moving on over to EPCOT, they talked about World Celebration, and they announced that World Celebration will finally be opening in December. So, guys, December, and this is pretty big because, as we all know, those construction walls that are around that area have been there for so many years now, like 4 years or so. And I think we're all ready for those walls to be taken down. Yeah, so December is when those walls will be taken down, and we'll get to walk around the center of EPCOT again. So, yeah. Then they talked about Journey of Water inspired by Moana, and they announced that it will be opening on October 16th, 2023. No shocker here that they announced that they announced the opening date for the attraction. But October 16th is the day it will open at EPCOT. Then they talked about the new fireworks show coming to EPCOT. They revealed the name of the show, and it's going to be called Luminous, the Symphony of Us. And they announced that it will premiere at EPCOT on December 5th. So that makes me think that World Celebration will open around that time that Luminous premieres, most likely. So yeah, World Celebration will most likely open around Luminous's premiere. That would just make the most sense. But it's disappointing that Luminous is going to be premiering like a couple days after I leave Walt Disney World. And World Celebration will most likely also open a couple of days after I leave Walt Disney World. So that's disappointing. But hey, at least I know that the next time I visit Walt Disney World after this year's trip, Luminous will be premiering, and I'll finally get to walk around the center of EPCOT again. So yeah, but Luminous, the Symphony of Us, premiering at EPCOT on December 5th. Then the final thing they announced or talked about at the Parks panel was Figment. As we all know, last year at D23, they announced that Figment would be returning to EPCOT as a character you can meet. And at Destination D23, they brought him on stage. This is what he looks like. And they announced that he would start meeting guests on September 10th, and it's September 16th as I'm recording this. So you can meet Figment now. Figment is a meetable character in EPCOT now, so you can go meet him. He's in the Imagination Pavilion, ImageWorks, I believe it's called. So you can meet Figment now. So but I'm really hoping that this is one step closer to us getting an Imagination revamp and a brand new Journey into Imagination ride. I'm really hoping this is a step forward in that direction. So, but Figment is now a character you can meet at EPCOT. Once again. All right. This wasn't announced at the Parks panel, but it was announced during the Destination D23 event, I believe at the EPCOT panel. They announced that Soarin' Over California is returning to EPCOT in celebration of the Disney 100 celebration. And it's actually going to be returning on September 22nd, I believe. the same day the Disney 100 celebration starts at EPCOT, begins at EPCOT. And I'm really hoping that it's going to be here when I'm there. Yeah, but that's awesome. Soarin' Over California is returning. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it will be there when I go in November. So, yeah, that's awesome. Soarin' Over California is returning. So, yeah. All right, and the last piece of EPCOT news here. This is probably the piece of news during the entire panel that none of us were expecting. They announced that Test Track will be getting a revamp, refurbishment, and it's, they announced that Test Track will be getting a revamp, refurbishment, and people are calling it Test Track 3.0, because this is basically going to be like a new version of Test Track. It's a new version of Test Track. Of course, the current Test Track is basically Test Track 2.0, and then there was Test Track 1.0 from before, so now people are calling this Test Track 3.0, and it pretty much is Test Track 3.0. But here is the most exciting news, is that they said that this is going to be, that they are taking inspiration from World of Motion and putting it into this new version of Test Track, and that just is awesome news that they are doing that. That's just awesome news that they are doing that. This is a piece of concept art for the attraction for the new version of Test Track. It's awesome that they're taking inspiration from World of Motion, putting it into this new version. I'm probably one of the only people who likes the present day Test Track. I know a lot of people don't like current day Test Track, but I really like it. Keep in mind that I have never rode Test Track 1.0, but I do really like Test Track 2.0, but I am really excited for this. I am really excited for this new version of Test Track, and the fact that it's going to be taking inspiration from World of Motion gets me even more excited. So I'm very excited for this new version of Test Track, and I don't think any of us were expecting this announcement. So, All right, now we're going to get into the expansion news for Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom. But before I do, the first thing I'm going to talk about here is that they announced that a Zootopia show is coming to Animal Kingdom. It's going to be in the Tree of Life, so it's going to be replacing It's Tough to Be a Bug. But a Zootopia show is coming to Animal Kingdom, and it is, it's not going to be a land. It's not going to be a land. It's now going to be a show. But I'm going to talk more about the expansion and stuff here in a moment. But first, let's talk about Beyond Big Thunder Mountain. They did talk about Beyond Big Thunder Mountain, but they did not talk about anything else. They didn't show any concept art. They didn't announce anything. But they did say that this expansion is on the same level as Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Pandora at Disney's Animal Kingdom. This expansion is on the same level as Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Pandora. And that's pretty much all they talked about for Beyond Big Thunder Mountain. But I'm really hoping that it's that there's some exciting stuff planned for this expansion. But if you want to make this on the same level as Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Pandora, then just make this entire expansion a Villain's Land, because I think that would get us really excited, a lot of us really excited, and I think that would, if there was a land that would be on the same level as Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Pandora, I think it would be a Villain's Land, because there's so much you can do for a Villain's Land. So I'm actually kind of hoping that this entire expansion is just a Villain's Land, because that would be amazing, and there's just so much you can do for a Villain's Land. Alright, so now let's talk about the Animal Kingdom expansion, where they did talk more about, like I said, Zootopia is getting a show in the Tree of Life, and as we all know, last year they talked about the possibility of Moana and Zootopia coming to Disney's Animal Kingdom, replacing Dinoland. But now that Zootopia is getting a show, it's very unlikely now, actually pretty unlikely now, that it's getting a land at Disney's Animal Kingdom, which, gonna be honest, thank gosh. And it doesn't seem like Moana's getting a land either at Disney's Animal Kingdom. But now they shared a brand new idea for what could replace Dinoland, and it's like a tropical America themed land. And they talked about the possibility of an Encanto attraction, as you can see there, and also an Indiana Jones attraction. So yeah, and that's pretty much all they talked about. And just keep in mind that this is just an idea that they have in mind. This is just an idea they have in mind. This is concept art they showed off, but it's just an idea of what they have in mind. And just my thoughts on this, I think that a tropical America themed land featuring Encanto and Indiana Jones is a much better idea than Moana and Zootopia land. Like, I know that Encanto doesn't really relate much to animal conservation, neither does Indiana Jones. However, Indiana Jones, I do think you could. I think Indiana Jones you could work and tie that into animal conservation. I think it could work I think you can make Indiana Jones work in Animal Kingdom and tie that into animal conservation. I think there's a lot you could do for that. But yeah. But I just think this is a much better idea than Moana and Zootopia. Do they fit the theme of Animal Kingdom well? Not really, but like I said, Indiana Jones, you could possibly work and tie that into animal conservation. And another thing too is that it looks like there's this like flat spinner ride. It looks like this is a flat spinner ride here, most likely replacing Triceratops Spin. But once again, this is just an idea they have, a possibility. None of this is confirmed. But let me just say this. If they do move forward with this idea of a tropical America theme, then you have to include an Up attraction. Up is in Disney's Animal Kingdom. Like, Kevin is a walk-around character there. And I believe can you still meet Russell and Doug there? I'm not sure. And I know there was that Up show from a few years back at Disney's Animal Kingdom that replaced Flights of Wonder, the bird show. I forget what it was called, but and there's the Wilderness Explorer thing. I don't know if they still do that at Animal Kingdom anymore or not, but if they do move forward with this idea, then you have to include an Up attraction, because Up, of course, takes place in South America, and I think it would, because Up does take place in South America. Up is featured in Disney's Animal Kingdom, so but once again, none of this is confirmed, but I do think this is a much better idea than Moana and Zootopia. So I am kind of disappointed that it was another like blue sky concept and none of this is confirmed. But once again, much better idea than Moana and Zootopia. And once again, nothing's confirmed. So, And the final thing I'm going to talk about here, this wasn't announced at the Disney Parks panel, but they did announce that D23 Expo is returning next year. However, it's going to be different. However, it's going to be different as it is not going to be called D23 Expo. Instead, they are changing the name to D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event. So that's the new name now. It's not called D23 Expo. It's going to be called D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event. And I think this is a permanent change. But next year, it's going to take place on August 9th, August 10th, and August 11th. And of course, it's going to happen at Anaheim, like it always does. Yeah. Don't really have that many thoughts on this, but I'm hoping that next year's D23 is better than last year's D23. So I'm hoping for some big announcements, but of course we'll speculate and predict as it gets closer. But yeah. Alrighty, so that is pretty much, that is everything that was announced, talked about at Destination D23, for the parks panel, as well as a few other things there. And my overall thoughts on this year's Destination D23 and Parks panel. I do think that the Parks panel here was better than the Parks panel at D23 Expo last year. Of course, no big announcements, but there were some surprises, like the test track announcement. And of course, we got some more blue sky ideas for a Dinoland replacement. But hopefully next year at D23, hopefully next year at D23 we will actually get an official announcement of what they are replacing Dinoland with and what is going to be beyond Big Thunder Mountain. So but that's not until next year. And like I said, once it gets closer, then we can start speculating and making predictions of what will be announced and talked about. Of course, Destination D23 is a smaller version of D23 Expo, which it's not going to be called D23 Expo anymore, but I'm still just going to use D23 Expo here. But yeah, it's a smaller version. It's a smaller version of D23 Expo, and so not that many big announcements, but there were definitely a few surprises, and so it's pretty much all I have to say, and so that's it for this video here. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time on Traffic Max Fun. Please like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.